the green wave. And we get to see a couple of Germans who decided to kill some flowers in order to show how much they care about the green. I never understood the act of picking a flower just for picking it. I mean, I get it. It feels no pain. You know, it's not relatable to a human. But still, like, it's a living thing. Like, why kill it? Like, if you want a flower, just use a pot. That's like my morality. I don't plan to impose my morality on other people, but I never could stand the act of just picking flowers. It's like, why you do this? Why leave it alone? It's a living thing. And here you also have like the guy, after winning the election, he's not even looking at you anymore. Like, he doesn't even care. He won the election. He got the money, the taxpayer money. I believe it's like $250,000 per year or something. Huh? And he's like, okay, got your vote. All right, so why am I really upset about the Green Party? Let's talk about Germany, right? In the European Union, the Greens won almost everywhere. And everyone is now like, oh, the pollution is going to go down. No, it's not going to go down. But the taxes are going to go up. That's my prediction of it, okay? Pollution isn't going to go down. It's probably going to go up just like the taxes. So, if you look at the history of the Greens, the Greenpeace and the Green parties and whatnot, they have their roots within the hippie movement, and they were anti-war. And the communists were also anti-war, so they had like that thing in common, and that's when the communists co-opted the Greens. All right, so when you go vote for a Green party, it's really a Trojan horse that has Marxism inside. Like, they use the issue, like, oh, do you care about the environment? Vote for us. And once they're into office, they don't care about the nature and the environment. They just implement socialist agendas. That's really it, okay? And like, for example, in Germany, the Green Party was the one that actually made so that Germany can't have nuclear power plants. Like, the alternative to pollution. It's the cleanest energy. And it's the safest energy. I mean, there were like only 2 accidents in humanity. And one of them was in USSR. And the accident happened because of negligence and because the communists would elect people based on party affiliation rather than competence. Plus, the guy who was in charge wanted to have something to prove and to show to the Communist Party that his power plant is more efficient than it actually was. And that's Chernobyl, right? And the other one is like, well, you built it in a place where there was an earthquake and then there was a tsunami. All right, so I guess accidents can indeed happen, but let's be honest. If you're saying that pollution is going to destroy the world, if you're saying that in 20 years the world is over, or how many, what is the estimate of planet Earth? What did Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say? How much longer does the planet Earth have to live? Like, if the stake is that the planet Earth is going to die, I think it's worth it to build nuclear power plants. I mean, it's safe, and the worst that can happen is just the people there get radiated. But if we don't do that, then the entire world, like, everyone, all the men, women, and children from across the globe are going to die because of the climate change, right? So I think like we have to put it in the balance. Like, what is more important? Clean energy with the risk of a power plant every now and then going poof, or the entire world collapsing. But no, like, the Greens will never accept nuclear energy because that's the solution, right? And if you fix the problem, then how can they talk about their Marxist ideology? How can they push for socialism if they don't have that? Right? So they need to keep up the panic. They need to ramp up the panic and get people to vote for them. And I know their voting base, by the way. Like, their voting base are usually the middle class, the white middle class bourgeoisie people that sip from a soy latte and they look with utter disgust towards the working class people because they don't eat organic. These types of people are the ones that vote Greens. And with these types of people, like, there's, they're the educated ones. Surprisingly, like, you need to go to a university in order to be that stupid. But yeah, so the European Union is now filled with the Greens. The main parties, the center left and center right, as they call them. Like, I generally don't think it's called the center left and the center right. It's like career politicians that just view their interests and trying to build a legacy in their name. There wasn't like that much difference of ideology between them, to be honest. But anyway, so they, for 40 years, maintained the dominance of the European Union. And now, for the first time ever, their dominance has been broken. And apparently, there has been record numbers of people that went to vote to the European Union. And I also assume that this is because the overreach of the European Union into people's private life. As it overreaches more and more people are going to go to vote. But anyway, right, so the people who won are the Greens, the socialists, right, the commies, and you also have the nationalists, the populists, as they call them. The main issue is that the Greens won a lot more than the nationalists. So I suppose what we're going to see is an alliance between the previous parties with the Greens, which are radicals, and they're going to be like driving the European Union even further to the left. So I think it's good. Like, let people notice what they vote for, because the people in France noticed what they voted for, right? Like, the people in France also were concerned about the environment, all up to the point where the government decided to increase the prices for gas. And then I guess no cars went into France because of riots and protests, and people started burning cars. So I guess in a way they kind of lowered the CO2 emissions by doing that. So, like maybe the European Union is going to do something similar. Like keep taxing. And what's interesting about these taxes, and why I say that the Greens will never manage to lower pollution, is that studies show that most of these taxes don't actually go for the environment. Like, they will raise the tax for gas, but the money that they raise isn't going into, I don't know, research, trying to find a way to reverse global warming or anything like that. It's like, no, the idea is we're going to raise the price of gas, and we're going to take that money and put it into social benefits, or, just add it to the government's overall budget, and people will stop using gas. Like, are you crazy? How will people stop using it? Like, they need to go to work, all right? Unless you invent the teleportation device or something similar, they will still need a car to get to work. And most of them already use public transport. Like, did you go to the rush hour and see how the public transportation is like? Like, imagine if no one uses a car tomorrow. Like, society has already been built over the past of several decades in order for people to use cars. You can't just say, yeah, well, we're going to make it even more expensive to buy gas. Not to mention the whole idea that it doesn't make sense when you actually try to figure out how this works, which is why they don't usually have debates. Like in Germany, I believe a German friend of mine told me that the Greens promised to remove the induction engine within 10 years. Like, how? And like, this is why people call them environmental Marxist as a joke. It's because, number one, like, once they get elected, they only talk about Marxism. They're like a Marxist box. And number two, they will ruin the economy of the nations they're in, so that another country that actually pollutes, that actually is the number one world polluter, like China, gets to take over economically. And once China gets to take over economically, there's nothing else you can do against it. I mean, did you even see how some cities in China look like? Why aren't they, talking about putting sanctions to China or something like that? Of course they would never do it. But it's just really infuriating to see how uneducated the population is, because they believe that the government is the magic man with the wand. Like the Christians believe that God can just make things happen. These people, they believe that the government can make just things happen. So if someone says, yeah, I'm going to fix global warming, vote for me, they get the vote. It's like, they don't even look to see how they plan to do it, and if it's feasible or not, if it's realistic or not. It's like me saying, okay, you have a hole in the wall. I can fix it for you if you only give me the keys to your house. And when you go there, you find that I ruined your house. Like, there's no more walls. It's like, well, no hole, no walls, no hole. Like, anyway, right. So this is my prediction. We're going to see major tax increases in Europe. We're going to see really ridiculous things, such as banning of straws. They actually have the law, by the way. The the size of length of a wick candle. The wick of the candle, they decided to like have a specific length to it. And you're thinking like, why? All right? And most people don't understand, but it really makes sense. I don't think that legislation passed. But what it really does is it cracks down on churches. Like, a lot of churches actually make candles, all right? And they don't have the ways to measure the candle length of the wick accurately. And because of that, then they can't sell their candles because it's like, well, it's not EU approved. Like, you have to guarantee that the length of the little string on the candle is this amount. And because they can't do it, they would go out of business. They would have to stop making candles. And you know, like, this is how these legislations go. Like, every time you see a legislation that kind of makes sense and it's advertised, oh, well, candles pollute, so we need to make shorter wicks or something like that. It's usually some corporate interest at stake. It's usually like some way of manipulating the free market into the advantage of a big corporation, almost all the time. And a lot of people just don't make that connection. You really need to look where the money goes, because it's usually not going into changing the global climate or anything like that. But anyway, in conclusion, I think the right wing needs to get its shit together and get onto the conversation. Because you do have people like the one in Romania who noticed that for the first time ever we have tornadoes. We noticed that the weather is becoming worse and worse. And all the right wing is doing is like, oh, there is no climate change or it's not man-made. And normal people don't resonate with that. Okay, like normal people are going to think emotionally. They're not going to spend and go through different scientific papers and decide which ones are real and which ones aren't. So the solution would be not to let the left co-opt this issue. The solution would be for the right wingers to say, all right, we're going to fix climate change. We're going to go nuclear. We're going to make a lot of power plants. We're going to build clean energy. And you're going to see the left is fuming over it. And they're going to be like, Ree! And they won't really have good arguments against it. So that is my advice. If a potential candidate, a potential right-wing candidate is watching me, all right, if ever asked about global warming, you should say, yeah, it's a serious issue. We need to go with nuclear. And then you're going to see how the votes are piling up. So yeah, stamp, stamp, stamp. People with soy latte lining up. Stamp, stamp, stamp. Just like people are subscribing to my channel right now and giving me a thumbs up. Click, click, click. See what I did there? Ah.